50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
November 5th, 2007. 17 years ago, we were graced with the release of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. The day it was released to the public would be the day that Call of Duty changed forever. The day COD became king. Without this game, you wouldn't have the Call of Duty today that many love or have loved. This game made waves in the gaming world because although it was not the first modern shooter, its ingenuity and creativity revolutionized what online gaming could be for a military shooter. Obviously, it was not the first FPS game that found success in terms of online gaming. Both Halo 2 and Halo 3 were what many considered to be the standard for online shooters, for console anyway. But even with both of those games' success, online console gaming was still getting its footing. Halo 3's release just a little more than 1 month prior to Call of Duty 4 demonstrated that online gaming was here. However, Call of Duty 4 redefined the military shooter genre. For many years, military shooters were stuck in World War II, Medal of Honor and Call of Duty being the standard. Both were excellent for their time, but it was very evident that World War II fatigue was prevalent. People no longer wanted just another World War II shooter, they wanted something new, something fresh. And COD4 delivered. As previously mentioned, Call of Duty 4 laid the groundwork for what Call of Duty is today. Movement and gunplay was significantly improved from Call of Duty 2 and Call of Duty 3, and it took a massive leap forward in its modern feel. Sprinting and overall character movement was fluid and controls felt tight. The story felt like a Michael Bay action film, and pacing was just right, but there was no shortage of big moments throughout the campaign. But it never overstayed its welcome. Although the campaign is great, I will shift my focus to where most players spent a majority of their time: the multiplayer. Options. This game delivered the player more options and customizability than any other Call of Duty had previously done. Create a class was a massive deal at this time. Not only was there a plethora of primary and secondary weapon options compared to previous entries, they introduced the perk system. 3 tiers that all had great value and plenty of options that changed the way your class shined. However, where Call of Duty 4 faltered was perk balance. At max rank, most players would all run very similar perk setups. Let's look at the blue perks. C4 times 2, RPG times 2, Special Grenades times 3, Claymore times 2, Frag times 3, Bandolier, and Bomb Squad. Most players, including myself, would fall on 2 main perks for this slot: Bandolier and Frag times 3. Bandolier was many players' go-to option because it simply gave you more ammunition. This was Scavenger before Scavenger. If you wanted to use your gun for a long period of time during a match, this perk was essential. Otherwise, you were forced to pick up another player's weapon whenever your ammo ran out, and it was a coin toss. Sometimes you'd get lucky. You'd get an M16 with a red dot, and other times you'd get a Dragunov. This perk especially shined in non-objective based game types where staying alive is the objective. Frag times 3, on the other hand, was every player's nightmare. Call of Duty 4's explosion radius for frags was absolutely broken. It was the most overpowered weapon in the entire game, if we're honest. Being able to spam frags into choke points or into objectives was an unmatched advantage. On the flip side, perks like Claymore times 2 and Bomb Squad were a perfect counter to each other. If you preferred a more camp-like playstyle, Claymore times 2 was a great option to watch your back. However, these never felt overpowered because Bomb Squad perfectly countered the hunker down with a Claymore strategy. Let's take a look at the red perks: Stopping Power, Juggernaut, Sleight of Hand, Double Tap, Overkill, UAV Jammer, and Sonic Boom. Red perks are what I consider to be the most powerful tier in the game. Much like the blue perk tier, many players would settle on 2 perks. Stopping Power was the go-to for a majority of players. Being able to take down your enemy with even 1 less bullet was an advantage for any player. On the flip side, Juggernaut gave you additional health that directly countered Stopping Power. However, your weapon would do less damage than Stopping Power weapons as a result. Both were incredibly powerful in the right instance, but most other perks in this tier were not used much in comparison, with the exception of maybe UAV Jammer. Being able to be invisible on the minimap when a UAV was up is potentially the most valuable ability in the entire game. Finally, we reach the green perks, the most balanced of all the perk tiers. extreme conditioning, deep impact, steady aim, last stand, martyrdom, iron lungs, dead silence, and eavesdrop. The options here were vast and on a relatively equal playing field. Personally, I use all but 3 perks here depending on the game type. Last Stand and Martyrdom are obviously very similar and often utilized by the new players as a chance to get a freebie after death. Eavesdrops is perhaps the most useless perk in the game and potentially Call of Duty history. Being able to hear the enemies is a cool feature, but does not give the player a distinct advantage like the other perks in this tier provide. Are you a rusher? Steady aim and extreme conditioning are a great option. Prefer to sit back with an assault rifle or sniper? Deep impact may be what you want. However, dead silence is likely the most powerful in this tier. Being able to sprint and not really be heard gives you the element of surprise that, especially in game types like Search and Destroy, provide you a clear advantage. Iron Lungs, on the other hand, is a useful perk, but only in specific scenarios, in my opinion. Playing Search and Destroy and watching the cross on maps like Overgrown while being able to hold your weapon steady for longer is a clear benefit to getting those opening picks. Perks really were a big game changer on making this game fresh. However, perks weren't the only thing in the game that made it fresh and unique from previous entries. Being the first modern Call of Duty, the weapons made all the difference. Let's dive into the weapons for a bit. There were 5 weapon categories, but 2 reigned supreme: assault rifles and submachine guns. By now, we all know the M16 was king, but that doesn't mean there weren't other highly usable weapons in these 2 categories. The M4 carbine, AK-47, G36C, MP5, AK-74U, and P90 were some of the best guns in the game, and all were extremely valuable in practically any game mode or map. Looking back now, the weapon list seems slim, but at the time, the list was massive. The variety was massive, and having the option to customize attachments with the red dot, suppressor, or ACOG all changed how the respective weapons performed. Now, what I consider to be the best part of the entire multiplayer experience is the maps. Call of Duty 4 has some of the greatest and well-made maps of any Call of Duty ever. Vacant, Backlog, Strike, Overgrown, Crash, Crossfire, and of course Shipment are what I consider to be the best in the game. However, even the quote-unquote worst maps in the game, like Wetwork and Block, are still better than the best maps in many other future Call of Duties. Countdown, Pipeline, and Bog were some of the most fun maps for snipers, but could be frustrating if you were a flank with a shotgun-type player. All in all, the maps in this game were second to none. They were, and still are, some of the best maps in Call of Duty history, and they truly set the bar on what good maps play like. There is so much more that can be said about the lasting impact of Call of Duty 4. From create a class to maps, we are still seeing the greatness of this game resonate even 17 years later. Thank you, Call of Duty 4, for the legacy you created, for launching Call of Duty into the mainstream, and giving me some of my favorite gaming memories of all time.